It's time. Shh. Hey everyone, welcome to Horror Talk Live, episode 10. And tonight we're going to talk about 1985's Silver Bullet, written based on a novella by Stephen King. We'll get into that, called Cycle of the Werewolf. Although it didn't start off as a novella, we'll get into that as well. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Brian. This is my son Troy. And he just got done watching Silver Bullet for his first time about a half hour before we went live here. We like to play things close here. Hey, Brandon. So yeah, Troy's first time actually even seeing a werewolf movie. So this was a treat. And just leave it go. So yeah, it was fun watching it with him and seeing his reaction to it. Now we'll get into Silver Bullet in a few minutes. First up, some upcoming 4K releases coming up. Hey Pop, how you doing tonight? Actually, March 12th, which is next week, we got the 3 big ones from James Cameron, which I know we talked about last month. We got the Trinity of the Abyss for the first time on 4K, or it never even got a Blu-ray release, so first time. Hey Rich, hey Kurt. Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. You've never seen this, Kurt? You never saw Silver Bullet? Holy molies, we got a couple Silver Bullet virgins in the house. Yeah, we got The Abyss coming out, which never even got a Blu-ray on 4K. True Lies, which I mine's pre-ordered, but Amazon hasn't shipped it yet, so here's hoping it gets here by Tuesday. And Aliens, which is another one I'll probably end up picking up. We also got, they just announced this not too long ago, and it's coming out at the end of April. We got The Departed on 4K for the first time on April 23rd. And the other real big one that got announced, and it was selling out, and now it's back. You can pre-order it again. The Crow comes out May 7th. And then they just announced this too. I just saw this get announced just recently. Yes, Aliens gets 4K release this coming Tuesday, Kurt. So get your order in. Killer Clowns from Outer Space, Steelbook 4K, comes out May 14th. Hey, Kathy. Oh, cool. Yeah, Killer Clowns from Outer Space. And I know there's a lot of Killer Clowns fans out there, and that's getting a 4K release, Steelbook. I got The Departed on pre-order. And I got True Lies on pre-order. Like I said, hopefully Amazon does what they say they'll do, and it'll be here by Tuesday, but we'll see. Because the True Lies never even got a Blu-ray release, so it's exciting that it's finally getting a 4K release, proper 4K. I just watched Titanic on 4K, and it looked absolutely stunning. If you haven't seen it on 4K, it looks amazing. Watched it last Friday. It looks great. Sounds great. They did a really nice job. Cameron did a really nice job with that. So if you're a fan of that movie, Titanic, again, that was the most expensive movie of all time at the time, $200 million. An achievement of cinema, that movie is for the time, and it still holds up incredibly well in 4K. It looks amazing. And yeah, I highly recommend that 4K. If you're a fan of that film, it's definitely worth it. So I'm hoping we get the same quality on True Lies and Aliens and The Abyss. I've seen a review today for The Abyss. If you're not following him, James over in the Search of Physical Media does a great job reviewing physical media. And he said The Abyss looks great on 4K disc, even better than the digital 4K copy. So yeah, check that out if you're a The Abyss fan. Just pick this up. It just came yesterday. Now, it's not horror, but some of you will appreciate this. The whole original Voltron series. My son was asking me about this. I have the first season on DVD, but this went on sale on Amazon for, I think it was like $25, and I couldn't pass it up. So every episode of the original Voltron series in this box set. I'm excited about diving deep into this again. It's been a while since I've watched these. So yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, True Lies better look good, Brandon. I agree. Yeah, this is the Steelbook of Voltron that I have had. This has the whole first season of the series. So I'm excited to watch the rest of it. I haven't seen the series in forever, so I'm excited about that. So it's going to be fun, and I know my son's excited about it as well. As for theatrical movies, what I've seen, actually in February, I only saw The Beekeeper again. I don't know how many of you were following my channel, but me and Dale _A from the Bat and Spider podcast, which I'm going to give them a shout out. If you're not subscribed to their podcast, go over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. That's right, Defenders of the Universe, Rich. And give those guys a like, give them a great review, tell them I sent you. They're great guys. They have a great horror podcast over there. And yeah, Chuck and Dale do awesome over there. So tell them I sent you. We went down to Wilmington, North Carolina, because that's going to come into tonight's episode a lot. I'm going to bring this up. And we got to go to a lot of different movie shooting locations. We got to, the movie we're going to talk about tonight, we got to do a lot of Silver Bullet locations. We got to do I Know What You Did Last Summer, a lot of shooting locations for that. Halloween Kills, Maximum Overdrive, and Scream 5, which that video will release on Sunday or Monday. We only got to go to like a handful of locations for Scream 5, but that video is coming out on Sunday or Monday. I still got to edit it together. I haven't got to it yet. So that was a lot of fun. But now let's get into why we're here. And some of you, like I said, Troy just saw it tonight for the first time. We just watched it. We got done watching about a half hour before we went live. So we're going to talk about 1985's Silver Bullet. Now, the genesis of this movie was originally Stephen King and Bernie Wrightson, the legendary Bernie Wrightson, were going to do a calendar. It started off as a calendar project where Bernie Wrightson would do his amazing artwork and Stephen King would just write a little vignette for each month, have to do with that specific artwork. And you can see the artwork online if you do a search for it. It's absolutely gorgeous. Dale was showing me some of it when we were in Wilmington. It's gorgeous artwork. And that was the idea, the genesis of Cycle of the Werewolf, which is what it was called before they changed it for the movie to Silver Bullet. But Stephen King wrote 121 pages. I think that's how the length is. Don't hold me to that, but I think that's what it is. So they scrapped the calendar idea and went to a novella, and they still published some of Bernie Wrightson's artwork with it. Well, Dino De Laurentiis, who did a lot of Stephen King adaptations in the 80s, picked it up immediately to make it into a film. And we'll talk about Dino De Laurentiis as we go through this. The man is a legend in the business, and he did a lot of films over the years, produced a lot of films, and he had owned a studio down in Wilmington, North Carolina, which was bought out by Screen Gems, and now it's owned by somebody else. I'm blanking on the name of it now, but I did a short video right outside the studio. We couldn't go in, me and Dale, but we shot a video from the adjacent lot next door. By the way, let me know how do I sound. I think we got all the bugs worked out from last month. My son was on top of it tonight and got it all working. So got to thank Troy for doing the tech work because I'm okay with this stuff, but Troy knows what he's doing. So De Laurentiis bought the script, bought the rights to the book or the novella. They had a script written, and Dino De Laurentiis, the first director he hired, and he was hired on the film, was none other than Don Coscarelli. Don Coscarelli came in, started rewriting the script. Him and another writer rewrote the script. Dino De Laurentiis wasn't happy with it, so Coscarelli brought Stephen King in to ask him for his advice on it because it was his novella. Stephen King gave Coscarelli some notes. De Laurentiis hated it. And him and Coscarelli could not come to an agreement, so Coscarelli left because of creative differences. In stepped Daniel Attias, I think that's how you say his name. Now, this is the only feature-length film Daniel Attias ever directed. He would go on to direct a ton of TV. He's still working to this day. He's had a long career. He just has never did another feature-length film. So, he came on. Stephen King ended up writing the script. He's credited with the script on this film. Now, in this film, cast-wise, I think it has a pretty damn good cast. Now, so for some of these, this is before they really blew up a little bit later in the 80s. Now, first up is Gary Busey plays Uncle Red in this film. And Gary Busey had been around since the late 60s acting. But this is pre-Lethal Weapon, pre-Point Break, pre-Under Siege, pre-Predator 2. So Gary Busey wasn't the Gary Busey that would come later on in the late 80s and through the 90s. But he's great here. Everett McGill plays Reverend Lowe in this film, and he's been around. He was around for a while. He was in Dune in '84, Lynch's Dune, which actually De Laurentiis actually produced that film. He was in Heartbreak Ridge a year after this with Clint Eastwood, which is a pretty damn good film. And I always remember him, besides this film, from People Under the Stairs in '91 for Wes Craven. Well, yeah, and plus Gary Busey was in that bad car accident that messed him up. That was also what Gary Busey's problem is now. Also in this film, Corey Haim. This is pre the Corey period. This is before Lost Boys, before he blew up. Corey Haim plays Marty, and Marty is a cripple or handicapped. He's in a wheelchair in this film, and obviously he would go on in '87 to do the Lost Boys. He did Lucas in '86, License to Drive in '88, and The Watchers, Dean Koontz adaptation in '88, The Watchers. If you ever seen that film, Megan Follows in this film playing his sister Jane. We got Terry O'Quinn playing Sheriff Joel Haller, and this is before Terry O'Quinn would go off to be the stepfather in '87. And then Stepfather 1 and 2, and then he was in Young Guns, he was in Tombstone and Lost and all that stuff, long career. And James Gammon's in this film, and he's only in the beginning of this film. He plays Arnie, the town drunk who works for the railroad. And I only bring him up because I love this character actor. He's been in a ton of stuff, but what I remember him from mostly is he was manager Lou Brown in Major League in 1989. And if you like Major League, and this isn't a plug because I'm not making any money off of it, the Major League is coming out in 4K in the beginning of April for the first time ever. So there you go. Now, this film takes place in Tarker's Mill, Maine. And we open up with Arnie on the train tracks under a full moon. And he's doing some work for the railroad, and he's drunk and singing. He's having a good old time, and he gets his head knocked off by the werewolf, which Troy was like, is that possible? I'm like, it's a horror movie, man. Anything's possible. But you like that, didn't you? That scene.
Yeah.
And then we're into, plus we have some, we'll get into this, but we have some voiceover by Jane, but not by Megan Follows, by an adult actress. And we'll talk about that because a very unnecessary, talk about an unnecessary voiceover. And then we're in the meat of our story. We meet the town, so we set up the town of Tarker's Mill. We set up Marty, his family, Uncle Red, and right away we're into it. The werewolf, we kind of fast forward to each month because the way the novella was set up, there was a murder once a month when under the full moon. This movie, and it took place over a year, where this movie takes place over about a 6-month period. And we only know that because of certain holidays coming up, like the 4th of July, Halloween, stuff like that. At the end of school, like in the beginning of the film. And right away, people start dying, and the town folk don't know why, and they're giving the sheriff a hard time. Like, why can't you figure out who's doing it? And what really kicks things into high gear is Marty's best friend, Brady, gets killed, slaughtered. We don't get to see the body, but just the look on Sheriff Joel Haller's face and Brady's father when they find his body, the horrific look on their face is all we need because they don't show us. The town spring into action. They basically form a mob, and they're going out to hunt down whoever's doing this. And they go out into the woods, and for their trouble, about 4 people get murdered, and now the town is in full-blown panic. And pretty soon, Marty goes out, because all these things are being canceled, the fair, the fireworks. So Uncle Red gives Marty some fireworks one night, and his new wheelchair, called the Silver Bullet, which Troy thought was pretty badass, and it is a pretty badass wheelchair. And he goes off and sets off his fireworks on this lake, on this wooden bridge, which actually me and Dale got to walk over that wooden bridge in Wilmington. It was pretty cool. And we got to go to the gazebo where they found young Brady's body as well. It's all actually right in the same area within like 20 yards of each other. And that's when Marty sees the werewolf for the first time coming up the bridge towards him, and he shoots it in the eye with the rocket. He takes off, and now he tells his sister Janie what happened. And now they're on the hunt to see who in town only has one eye so they can figure out who is the beast. And eventually they figure out it's Reverend Lowe. They bring their uncle in on it. And at the end of the film, we have our last confrontation at their house on Halloween night. And Marty is able to shoot the werewolf in the other eye. And that's the end of Silver Bullet. Now, I used to watch this film all the time. There was a station out of New York when I was growing up. If you lived in the Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, there was a station out of New York called WPIX 11 out of New York. And every Halloween, they had their Shocktober. Every night of the week, they would play a horror movie from 8 to 10. And that's how I saw Silver Bullet. For the longest time, it's the only way I ever saw it. I never saw the R-rated cut till much later. But I used to watch it ad nauseum. So I have a lot of nostalgia for this film. But at the end of the day, I still think it's a pretty solid film. I like the acting. I think Gary Busey, who ad-libbed most of this film, is phenomenal here. And my favorite line of his during the film is, "I'm too old to be playing Hardy Boys meets Reverend Werewolf." I love that line. It makes me smile every time he says it when I watch this. And he's great here. And I do buy his relationship with the kids. Him and Marty have a special bond. And even though Uncle Red's kind of a screw up, he's a drunk, he's an alcoholic, and he's been divorced 3 times, as they say in the movie, he cares for Marty. And you get that through the performances with Gary Busey and Corey Haim, and even Megan Follows. Once she's she's kind of standoffish with Marty because she sees him as a burden on her life because she has to take care of him, help out a lot. But you could tell she even really cares for Marty, and for have these young actors in here, and we all know Corey Haim was talented. It's a shame what happened to him. But he's talented and he's really good here, and he plays handicapped, like he does pull it off. It's a believable performance, and I just love their bonds together and how much it seems real to me, and it seems like I keep hitting the mic, but they do pull it off really, really well. Everybody else here in the main leads is great. Everett McGill is awesome as the creepy Reverend, although I even think for his character, even though towards the end of the film he goes full-blown evil, I think he regrets what he is and what he's doing to his flock. Like when the men and women are going out as the mob to hunt whatever's killing folks in town, he's trying to stop them, and I think it's genuine. He knows he's going to end up killing a bunch of these people that are in his church on Sunday morning, and I don't think he wants them to do that. And he really is trying to stop them out of concern that he's going to tear a bunch of them apart, which he ends up doing. But then, like, he turns just like that once Marty discovers him. I mean, he goes full-blown heel very fast after that. But I do think you could see that regret in his performance. Everett McGill's great here. So is Terry O'Quinn. I mean, he gets killed by Everett McGill in the garage. He gets his head bashed in with a baseball bat. But he's great here as well. And, Terry O'Quinn's awesome. I mean, he's awesome in everything he's ever in. So yeah, the acting's great across the board. I like the story. I like the small town feel. They do pull it off, and they filmed a lot of this in a small town. We got to go to Burgaw, North Carolina, where they filmed Tarker's Mill, like the festival downtown, where the bar was. We got to see all that, and it's a small town, so they really do capture that really, really well. And so all that stuff, I love that stuff. I like the story too. I think the story is really well told. It's a simple story, but really for a movie like this, that's the best kind. You don't need something more complicated than it needs to be. But yeah, so those things, I love all those things. I only have a couple negatives for this film, but I'm gonna let Troy say what he really liked about this film because it's his first time. Go ahead, Troy. What did you like about the film?
I like the part where the dad of the little girl, like when he went in the shed and he got attacked.
Oh,
because he only brought one bullet.
Just the one-shot shotgun, and he used it on a pot, and he had nothing to defend himself. What did you think about the werewolf?
It was pretty cool.
It was pretty cool. Now, this was Troy's first werewolf film. He hasn't seen American Werewolf yet, or The Howling, or Dog Soldiers. We haven't gone through. This is his first one. So there's many more good ones to go through. This is his first one. How do you think about how they dispatched of the werewolf?
Good. I think for what they tried to do, because they only gave him the 2 chains for it, I definitely don't think that would have been enough to make a bullet.
He only had 1 bullet. Well, no, it was enough to make 1 bullet.
No, that wouldn't have been.
Yes, it was.
It would have been enough for half.
No, it was enough for 1 bullet. We'll have a difference of opinion on that, okay? Actually, speaking of the favorite scenes, what was your favorite scene? Was it the girl's father getting killed in the shed?
Yeah.
That was your favorite scene? Okay. I think there's a bunch of cool werewolf attacks here, and I love that one. I love the one in the shed with... Are you having a hard time hearing him, Kurt? We'll just switch back and forth then. Yeah, we'll have to get another one of these. No. I love the shed one with that girl's father, who's kind of he makes that comment about Marty, which God damn, man. You could tell it was the 80s. I like that one. I also love when the mob goes out and they're in that gulch area with the fog up to their waist and they can't see the werewolf, but you can hear it all around them. I love that scene. I love the way it's shot. I love the way it's set up. Um, I I like actually all the werewolf attacks, and I like that they keep the werewolf. I okay, we could get into that. Why they never showed the corpse of Brady? Okay, Troy asked me the exact same thing, Rich. Okay, here's the thing about that scene. They actually did have a dummy corpse made up. The effects guys made a body for that scene. But the director was not happy with it. They said it didn't look that great. So the way around it was just to cover it with a sheet and not ever show it. So that's why you never see the body. And if you remember, really, there's only a handful of movies I can think of where you actually see a kid get killed or the aftermath. I mean, they always shied away from that. In a lot of films, there's only I would even have to think about it, but I know there's a few films I remember that you see a kid get killed, but usually they always skirted around that. But that's not the reason why here. They were actually going to show the aftermath, but they said the body didn't look good enough, so they didn't use it. So that's why, Rich, you never saw it in this film. That would be why. That was just me doing some research, and I found that out. I always wondered that too, why they never showed it, but that's why. They were never happy with the body that was made by the effects guys, so they just didn't show it. And but if you remember, there was a lot of times in those horror movies you didn't really see those young kids get killed, and this is one of them, but for different reasons, only because they weren't happy with the effects. Which there was other reasons. There was other effects in the movie they weren't pleased with, and we'll get into that. I love the look on Sheriff Joel Haller's face, though. There, like his face says it all about what he saw, and even the father's face when he breaks down. The other scene I absolutely love is the nightmare scene where the Reverend's presiding over the funeral for the 4 people killed in the attack in the fog, and everybody starts turning into the werewolves and coming after him, and then he wakes up in his cold sweat screaming. I love that scene, and they actually had 70 extras packed in that room, all with different phases of the makeup on, and they said it was a really, like, obviously a very labor intensive scene to shoot, and a lot of effects guys making different people up in different transformations, like stages of transformation, just to pull that scene off. But I really love that nightmare sequence, and I love when Sheriff Joel Haller gets killed. I like that character. I didn't want to see him die, but I think it works really well, because he didn't believe Uncle Red's story or even Marty's that Reverend Lowe's a werewolf. The 80s. Oh yeah, definitely. I love the 80s, man. 80s horror was, or any movies in the 80s were great. I just love how the sheriff goes out because he's not believing, but once Reverend Lowe comes in and he finds the bat, he knows something's up. And then I love that last battle between Gary Busey's character, Uncle Red, and the werewolf. Gary Busey did all of his own stunts in that scene. That was him flying into the china cabinet. That was him flying into the mirror. He did all that himself, and like I said, he outlived most of his dialogue. A matter of fact, that scene where his sister, Marty's mom, says about, he doesn't need to see you giving up or showing him how to do it. That was all ad-lib between her and Gary Busey. They asked the director if it was okay if they just went at it, and he said go for it, and that's what came out of it. And I think it's a really great scene, because Uncle Red believes in Marty, and I believe Gary Busey's performance. And Gary Busey's played a lot of like crazy guys over the years, especially later on in Surviving the Game, Lethal Weapon, all that stuff, and Under Siege. But here he really does give, even though he's playing a drunk, he gives a really good, loving performance here. And I love his chemistry with Corey Haim. I know I said that before, but I'll say it again. Now, that last scene gets into one of my negatives about this film. My one negative, well, I'll get to the first negative, the voiceover by Janie is totally unnecessary. It's the most useless voiceover. Yes, yeah. The most totally useless voiceover in cinema history. There is no reason for that voiceover to exist. She's saying things that's happening on screen. I don't know why they decided to put that voiceover in there. I can't find anything online to tell me why they used it because it's totally pointless. But the other negative I have about this film is um, they didn't say he was drinking on set. They actually said he was really nice. I don't know. They didn't. I didn't hear anything bad, but he could have been drunk. I don't know. It's Gary Busey. He was always kind of a wild man. The werewolf costume. It was a suit built for the movie by Carlo Rambo. Sorry, I'm messing his name up already. Carlo Rambaldi. He did the werewolf suit at the behest. De Laurentiis wanted him to make the suit. I know that narration has no emotion, Brandon, at all. She's just like line reading, like totally deadpan. It's like, why is this even in the movie? And when I read your review, Brandon, I totally agree with you about the voiceover. I've always agreed with that. The voiceover serves no purpose. It's totally useless. The other little negative about this film was the werewolf costume. Carlo Rambaldi did the costume. De Laurentiis was friends with him. He'd used them in the past. He'd worked on King Kong 76. Although Rick Baker did the King Kong costume, but he was involved with the makeup effects. He made the werewolf suit. Now, Stephen King always described the werewolf. He said it should be a plain-looking beast. And even De Laurentiis was never happy with the werewolf costume. But he wanted them to use it. And Brandon, when I read your review and you said about it, you could see De Laurentiis talking to the effects guy, we're going to show it because I spent money on it. He wanted it more in the film than it really is. When Don Coscarelli was still on the film, his idea was to shoot the werewolf like Jaws. Like you only see this, a claw, a hand. Yeah, he did stuff for Dune as well. I mean, he is renowned effects artist. It's just, I think the werewolf costume, I think we could all agree, is pretty lacking here. It looks like a big-ass bear instead of a werewolf. It's okay. It's not the worst werewolf I've ever seen, but it's definitely, compared to like American Werewolf or The Howling or some other werewolf films, it's definitely lacking. So when Coscarelli left, Attias was going to shoot the werewolf the same way, and that's why most of the movie you don't see much of the werewolf. You see the eyes, the teeth, the snout, the ears, the claws, and the feet. That's it. You don't see the whole thing until that last encounter at Marty's house when the werewolf busts through the wall. Because they knew, I don't think anybody was really happy with it, but they had to show it in that last confrontation. There was no shooting around it at that point because it's going to be in full view going up against Gary Busey. They're going to have to show it. And when they show it, it is kind of underwhelming. It doesn't, I mean, it's okay, like I said, but there's been other better werewolf on screen before, and this just isn't one of them. And it's kind of sucks because I love this movie. I really do. It's one of my favorite werewolf movies, but it's not because of the werewolf. I think it works better through the first 3/4 of the film when you only see bits and pieces of it, and you're not getting a look at the whole beast. I just think the werewolf costume could have been a lot better. And speaking of werewolf costume, they actually hired a professional dancer to act in the costume, and they saw the dailies and Easter egg and so yeah. Oh, you can elaborate on that, Rich. What was I saying? I lost my train of thought reading Rich's thing. Dino De Laurentiis didn't like the costume either. He actually didn't like it at all. But he wanted him to show it, like I said. He said, we spent money on it, we got to show this thing. So they did show it, unfortunately. I mean, again, it's not the worst werewolf, but it looks like a bear. It does. It doesn't look like a werewolf. It looks like a goddamn bear. Now, I think the transformation effects, the bladder effects and that, I think they come off really good. I think they look really cool. Yeah, so the effects work, that's one of the drawbacks of this film. I love this movie. I think it's everything. Oh, yeah, okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, they hired a professional dancer. That's where I was going with this. They hired a professional dancer to act in the werewolf costume, but they saw the dailies and De Laurentiis freaked out. He's like, they fired the dancer, and actually Everett McGill ended up performing in the werewolf costume for the rest of the shoot. So Everett McGill actually did play Reverend Lowe, and he was actually in the werewolf costume through the rest of the filming of this movie. And I thought that was... Yeah, there's even a special feature on that 4K right there from Scream Factory that Everett McGill talks about acting in the werewolf costume. And, yeah, so he was actually in there, Reverend Lowe. was actually the werewolf. So I thought that was pretty cool. Now, this film was shot in and around Wilmington, North Carolina. The woman's house who was going to commit suicide and the werewolf bust through the window, that was shot in Wilmington. Tarker's Mill was in Burgaw, North Carolina. The whole downtown, the barber shop, the bar, that's all in Burgaw. And then the church, Reverend Lowe's church, was in Leland, North Carolina. These are all within 20 minutes, 25 minutes of each other. I got to visit all those locations. It was pretty cool to see those.
She was going to commit suicide? I never got that part.
You didn't hear what she said?
No.
She was taking those pills. She was going to commit suicide. Because even Reverend Lowe, even later on, when he's talking to Marty, says he took her life, took that burden away from her. I'm approximate of that. Because she was going to go to hell if she committed suicide. And I actually think in that scene, he believes that. Like, he's doing this for... But it doesn't explain the other people he killed. So, he's trying to justify it to himself. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that smiley face kite is from The Howling. Yeah, it's a callback to The Howling. Also, another callback is in the barber shop, there's a sign when the barber's cutting the hair and Janie goes in for the bottles. You can see a sign, re-elect Mayor O'Bannon. That's a callback to Dan O'Bannon, who wrote and directed Return of the Living Dead, and he co-wrote Alien and other films. So that's a little callback to Dan O'Bannon as well. There's another callback in this film when Brady's dad says, "Why don't you go out to Harmony Hill and ask my son what he thinks about private justice?" That's a callback to Salem's Lot. Harmony Hill was in Salem's Lot in Stephen King's novel and the movie. Here's the other thing about the werewolf suit. They actually started shooting without a functioning werewolf suit. They were still working on it. So they had to shoot around the werewolf for a while. But, a lot of this stuff like that happens in Hollywood. And the werewolf actually took 3 months to build. And that's what we got. But I guess if they asked for a plain-looking werewolf, that's what they got. He delivered what they wanted. Maybe there was just some lost in translation. Who knows what went wrong. Because I'm sure they spent a little bit of money. I mean, this film did cost $7 million to make. And it got released on October 11th, 1985. Unfortunately, it only made $12 million worldwide. You don't like Salem's Lot, Rich? I love Salem's Lot. Tobe Hooper shot that movie, the TV movie, the original Salem's Lot, not the remake with Rob Lowe. I don't like the Rob Lowe one. I like the Tobe Hooper one. But let me know what you guys think. What version of Salem's Lot do you like best? I'm trying to see if I missed anything here before I let Troy tell you what he gives this movie. Oh, there was 2 Stephen King adaptations in 85. The other one was Cat's Eye, which was another Dino De Laurentiis movie. And speaking of that, Dino De Laurentiis, we talked about his career. He was producing movies for the longest time, and he owned a studio in Wilmington. I know I said that earlier. Yeah, I know you don't like Salem's Lot, Rich. I just like poking the bear. But he did a lot of Stephen King adaptations, and he did Dead Zone in 83, Firestarter in 84. That was the one Carpenter was supposed to do, but got fired off of because of the failure of The Thing, which I still can't believe that's a thing, that The Thing actually bombed, but it did. Cat's Eye in 85, Silver Bullet in 85, then Maximum Overdrive in 86, and then sometimes they come back in 91. So Dino De Laurentiis, he did a lot of King adaptations. Oh, it definitely needs a new scan, man. That could definitely use an upgrade. That old Blu-ray is not... I mean, I have it.
Why is there so many things named after a school, Salem?
Oh, my son's school is Salem Middle School here in North Carolina, so it's just one of those names, buddy. I don't know what to tell you. You don't remember the town in Massachusetts, Salem, Massachusetts, we went to a few times?
Like Salem Drive.
That's right. Also, Dino De Laurentiis also did Halloween 2 in 81, Halloween 3 in 82, Conan the Barbarian, Amityville 2 The Possession, Conan the Destroyer, Dune 84, Raw Deal, Manhunter, which I love Manhunter, and Leviathan. That was just his 80s output, plus there was other films. And speaking of Conan the Destroyer, Coscarelli was brought in because De Laurentiis wanted him to direct Conan the Destroyer based off his work on Beastmaster. But Coscarelli said no to Conan the Destroyer. I don't know why. And De Laurentiis offered him Silver Bullet, and he took it. But like I said, he left the project over creative differences with De Laurentiis. And just a little bit of Gary Busey, Everett McGill separation, like 3 degrees of separation here. Oh, yeah, Blue Velvet as well, Brandon. Gary Busey and Everett McGill would go on to be, Gary Busey would be the villain in Under Siege Part 1, Steven Seagal movie, and Everett McGill would be one of the villains in Under Siege Part 2. So, yeah, they have that in common, too, through their careers. But at the end of the day, I think this is a very strong werewolf movie. It's one I've always enjoyed. Oh, you like? I haven't seen Cat's Eye in forever, Rosa. I used to see it so many times as a kid. I haven't seen it in forever. I just remember that little demon running around. I know Drew Barrymore's in that movie, as she was in Firestarter too. So, she did 2 movies with De Laurentiis 2 years in a row. But yeah, I like this movie. I think it's well done. I think Daniel Attias does a nice job with the directing. I like the score, even though there's parts of the score that reminds me of the Missing in Action score. And I love the actors here. I love the story, the small town feel. I don't know why Conan the Destroyer is not as beloved. I think because so many people love the first one that they just feel like the Destroyer is just not as good as the first one. I don't think it's that bad. It's been a while since I've seen that one. I know Brandon got the 4K box set, right? Brandon, have you watched Conan the Destroyer yet on 4K, or did you just get the Conan and the Barbarian? I'm sorry. I don't know if Brandon can even type. I think he might not be able to type right now. Actually, for how much I love this movie, and that 4K is worth buying if you're a fan of physical media. It's the best the movie's ever looked. Scream Factory did a great job on that movie. Yeah, Drew Barrymore's in Cat's Eye. She's the little girl in Cat's Eye. You got the double set, Brandon? You got both movies? Cool. Have you watched them yet, buddy? Or you haven't gotten around to it yet? I know you've been on a tour of movies lately, but I know you're working your way towards it. I don't know if you've done it yet, but I think this is a really well done movie, and it's definitely yeah, that's the thing. It's missing Milius's edge, the second one, but I still enjoy it. It's fun. Um, Hell, I haven't even watched Conan in a while. I got to rewatch that. I only have the Blu-ray. I don't have the 4K. Although I did watch the 4K of the Warriors the other night, and my God, the Arrow did a great job with that disc. Oh my God, the movie looked great. It looked amazing. Such a badass movie. I love the Warriors. If you're on the fence about buying that 4K, I can tell you right now that transfer is the chef's kiss. Oh yeah, well yeah. My son's talking about Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire. He can't wait to see it. It comes out in 2 weeks. 2 weeks today.
I want to see it now.
Well, you gotta wait 2 weeks. I can't. I don't have no strings to pull to get you that. Again, the complaints are the voiceovers, and I don't think the werewolf costume is up to snuff. But everything else I absolutely adore about this movie. I think it's so well told, and the acting, I just love it. And at the end of the day, I would give this movie a 9 out of 10. I like it that much. A matter of fact, before I let Troy give you his rating, I actually wouldn't mind, and this pains me that I'm even going to say this, but I actually wouldn't mind seeing this remade. Although, with a caveat, the effects, the werewolf has to be practical. No CGI bullshit. Has to be practical. But I think this is a movie that could be remade now. And give it a decent budget. It doesn't have to be a big budget one, but give it a decent budget and give it to a director with vision. And I think it could be a really cool remake. But again, it has to be practical effects because I don't want to see no CGI werewolf. We've done that and it sucks. Every time it's on screen, a CGI werewolf, it looks like shit. So I can see this being remade. I wouldn't mind it being remade. And I usually am not one that loves remakes, although there's some remakes I really, really like. Obviously, there's classic remakes like The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, and The Blob, which is amazing as well. And Invasion of the Body Snatchers and The Fly. Even the Texas Chainsaw remake, I like that one too. And I don't hate Rob Zombie's Halloween like most people, but usually I'm not a champion of remakes. But this is one I could see and get behind. Oh yeah, every October, Rich. I've watched this thing a couple times a year. I've already watched it 3 times this year already. I watched it in January to 4K. I watched it with Dale a couple weeks ago, and I just watched it with Troy for the first time. 8 out of 10 from Rich. All right, okay, Troy. This is Troy's turn to rate this bad boy. What would you give Silver Bullet?
8 out of 10.
8 out of 10.
Yeah.
You really liked it that much to give an 8 out of 10?
Yeah.
Would you watch it again for Halloween?
Yeah.
A Halloween staple. Would you be interested in watching another werewolf movie?
I'd be interested in watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Of course, he has to go right to that. I said werewolf movie. I didn't say Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I don't care.
Yeah. Kids. Can't live with them. You can't smother them. I'm only joking. I wouldn't do such a thing. I love my son. 9 out of 10 from me. I love this movie. It's a movie, again, I know, Rich, you grew up on this one too, just like I did. It's a movie I've watched many times over the years. But yeah, if you've never seen it, Kurt, watch it tonight or watch it this weekend. I don't think you'll be disappointed. It's a cool 80s werewolf movie with some cool performances. And it's a pretty fun-ass movie, man. Now, next month, for the month of April, me and Troy already picked our movie out, what we're going to do next month. So I'm going to announce that right now. Why are we waiting?
Just wait a second.
Oh, yeah, I have that. Oh, before I announce it, for you Thanksgiving fans out there, the movie Thanksgiving, Eli Roth Thanksgiving, we got this from NECA, along with the John Carver figure, but I had to get this plushie because this thing is badass. So yeah, if you're a fan, you can get this plushie for like $15 on NECA.com. It's pretty damn cool. I enjoy it. Troy's holding it up right now behind me, the artwork. We are going to do John Carpenter's The Fog for April. Troy's never seen it. I've seen this film about 50 times over my lifetime. So yeah, we're going to go deep on John Carpenter's The Fog. And it's going to be fun because I know a lot of you out there like this film. Some of you may have never seen it. Not the remake. John Carpenter's The Fog. If you've never seen it, check it out. I will release a date when we're going to do this next month for episode 11. Kurt, I am not sure if Silverbolt's streaming anywhere. You can rent it. I don't know if it's streaming for free, though. Yeah, and I got to be honest. This beautiful steelbook, I got to give credit to Brandon. He sent this to me. And I love this steelbook, Brandon. I appreciate it every time. I love looking at it. It's a beautiful steelbook. But, yeah, I know you saw it the other day driving to work. So did I, Rich. Smart ass. So, yeah, we're going to do John Carpenter's The Fog, starring Adrienne Barbeau, Jamie Lee Curtis, the great Tom Atkins, Janet Leigh. Great cast. It's going to be a fun one to discuss. Again, Troy's never seen it, so I'll be excited to watch this with him. But that is it for this episode of Horror Talk Live. I want to thank everybody that tuned in and joined us here on a Friday night, spending a little bit of your Friday night with us. I greatly appreciate it. I hope you all had a great week, and if you didn't, I hope your weekend's badass. Have a great weekend. And yeah, that's it for this one. You guys take care out there, and we'll see you next month. See you. Bye.